$1,119 for the RTX 4080, £1,679 for the RTX 4090. Is Nvidia insane? It's been a little over a week since the RTX 4000 announcement, and it's safe to say that a lot of people are not happy with Nvidia's showing. I'm seeing lots of comments about ludicrous pricing, fake FPS gains, and the RTX 4070 that's dressed up and disguised as an RTX 4080. So what gives? And are these cards really going to be a game changer? Find out absolutely everything you need to know, including a lot of my personal insight, after a short word from this video sponsor.
Corsair's DDR5 is here for your next generation PC. With Intel XMP and AMD Expo kits available, no matter your platform, Corsair has you covered. You can now even get Vengeance DDR5 in RGB flavor to make your PC look even brighter. Get yours today with the link down below.
Okay then, let's start with price. Why exactly are these new cards so expensive? It is certainly a fair question, but arguably a matter of perspective depending on who you ask. For reference, the RTX 3080 launched at $699 and the GTX 1080 at $599, so things have certainly moved on a lot in the last 6 years. The most cynical way that you can look at this is that it's all about profit. Nvidia set the prices after all, so they can make as much money as they want. They're a public company, they literally need to make money for their shareholders, so they're going to squeeze you for everything they can, right? It's absolutely no secret that GPU prices have been selling for way above the asking price in the last 2 years. So clearly, Nvidia has seen this, they've realised they can milk us for even more cash, we're just going to buy into it anyway, and then hey ho, even more cash for the investors. But honestly, I don't think that's the story, not at least in its entirety. Regardless of what you think about Nvidia or their new GPUs, the fact of the matter is, prices on everything have been rising the last 24 months. Materials, energy, labour, it's all part of inflation, and dialing £650 into a very basic UK inflation calculator shows gains of almost £100 in 2 years alone, and Nvidia aren't going to just absorb that cost. But okay, by that metric the card should be £750, not the £950 that they're touting this time, so what gives? Well, in the UK, the pound is down to nearly 1-to-1 versus the US dollar, so extra costs on our side of the pond is sadly not too surprising. But more so than that, the complexity of this tiny new 4nm process is surely more expensive to boot, let alone the sheer demand for fabrication plants. I would argue that it is a fair assumption that TSMC is charging Nvidia a fair bit more versus the previous pre-pandemic level of pricing, though of course we will never know this for sure. Then there's the larger amounts of memory physically going into these cards. 16GB, 24, it all comes with a price. Forget about Game of Thrones, it's all about a game of margins. Why would Nvidia want to make less money per graphics card unless they absolutely had to? But the good news is, I think this is going to happen in the not too distant future because we have some extra launches coming our way. Both AMD and Intel are dropping new GPUs later this year, and without having the safety net of sellout pandemic buying frenzies, all of these new cards are going to have to be worth the asking price. I mean, Intel has just announced their Arc A770 for $329, a decent watch lower than the rivaling RTX 3060, and AMD is currently readying its 7000 series of Radeon GPUs that should compete at the high end. But back to the main question, and the title of this video, why are the new cards so expensive? Well, my theory is just because they can be. Because here's the thing, Nvidia are well aware that AMD hasn't currently launched their high-end GPUs, and before they do, they can get a sense of the market. Will people genuinely be prepared to pay top dollar for these brand new cards? Or will they need to drop the price? This would be very, very clever marketing, because it's a way of keeping the price higher than it would be than if you launched at what we maybe expected. AMD comes out with something that's competitive and then they have to go below what they want to sell for. This almost enables the price to stay a little bit higher. Obviously, from a consumer point of view, bad, but you can see why, from a company point of view that wants to make money, that does make sense. Obviously, this is speculation. I'm sure Nvidia may well disagree with me, but that is my personal theory. It's worth noting that a graphics card doesn't have any real value per se, it is just a chunk of metal. It's all about what people are actually willing to pay for them, and all the time the market buys a $1,500 GPU, you can bet that Nvidia will be selling them. I know this probably sounds quite doom and gloom, but it is worth remembering that the vast majority of Nvidia GPUs will be coming next year, and the pricing on those should be far, far lower, especially if Intel and AMD do have something to say about it. But of course, price wasn't the only damp squib in the announcement. People also a little bit confused / some people angry with the announcement of DLSS 3.0. And in a nutshell, DLSS 3.0 is a fusing of 3 core technologies to give the best gaming experience possible. As it was with Ampere, DLSS Super Resolution uses AI and tensor cores to dynamically scale up rendered frames to a sharper resolution at far less performance cost. But with DLSS 3.0, Nvidia Reflex syncs up the CPU and GPU render pipeline to remove the render queue, and then use a new frame generation technique to add an extra frame between rendered frame A and rendered frame B. Technically, you need 1 frame for this to work that uses a motion vector, so it would actually be frame B and C, but you know what I mean. And generally speaking, there are 2 main areas of confusion here. Firstly, does this add extra latency to your video games? Well, no and yes. The net result should be roughly the same in terms of output latency, as while there is a penalty to using this new frame generation technique, Nvidia Reflex also removes a massive chunk of it in the first place. There's already a really good video up on YouTube actually by Digital Foundry that can address this in much greater detail. They can't give numbers, but they can give percentages. I'll leave this linked in the top right corner of your screen if you do want to go and check that video out. But then as for confusion numero number 2, it's all around why this isn't available on the previous generation. Are Nvidia really holding back DLSS 3 just for their new Ada cards? Why are these left out in the dark? Well, this is one I can't personally verify, but the official story does make a lot of sense. We're talking about a whole new frame generation technique that can only work if it is working faster than rendering a brand new frame. And the narrative is such that the tensor cores and the RTX 40 series are fast enough to actually achieve this, whereas the ones on the 30 series that don't have the dedicated accelerators inside are sadly not. It is possible that Nvidia will look at supporting this on older generation GPUs once Ada is launched, but personally I don't see that happening unless they have a real reason to, because 1, that's assuming it can work. At the moment, as we know, the story is very much that it doesn't and it can't. But assuming that there is a way to get it to work in some sort of way, I personally believe they would only enable this if they wanted more DLSS 3.0 compatible games, because developers need a reason to make this, so the more cards out there that support it, the better. Or maybe that they just need to sell more cards, or for whatever reason they need to enable this. There's got to be a reason for them to do it, and sadly being nice isn't really a great business strategy. And then, oh yes, there was one more thing to address. The RTX 4080 12GB, the Scooby-Doo villain of the Ada world. And honestly, I do think there is very little defense for what Nvidia has done here, because at best, it's a bit confusing. At worst, it is misleading. I don't get it. I mean, I guess there's a reason. Maybe they're sort of tweaking the actual RTX 4070. There's more cards going to be lower end, so they need to make room. But it doesn't really make sense, because I would almost liken this to buying orange juice in the supermarket, right? You can buy the really nice stuff like your Tropicanas, your top brands, and it has loads of bits in it which are lovely, and it's not from concentrate, it's been transported all of this way. It's a very different product to the stuff you find in the dry section that's a bit bland and tastes rubbish. But I would argue that the Nvidia RTX 4080 12GB isn't even at orange juice level, because it's a completely different GPU inside it, and it's got a completely different amount of VRAM. The VRAM difference is not the only difference. If it was, fine, but when you're going to have different performance from a different GPU, I don't really get why you can call it the 4080. It doesn't make sense, and I think it's bad. However, I will also add on this matter that it is literally just a name. The product, regardless of what it says on the side of it, isn't going to affect the performance. So if the only reason you're not going to buy the 4080 12GB is because it's called the 4080, don't worry about it too much. Like, it's annoying, but again, it's not going to change what's actually inside your PC. What's inside this PC is a 3090 Ti and a brand new Ryzen 7 950X. If you do want to see the full build guide on this, you can find it in the top right corner of your screen. As for the new graphics cards, we will be testing all of these once they arrive in the studio. You can bet your cotton socks we'll be doing unboxings, reviews, build guides, benchmarks, everything. So please do get subscribed if you're not already so you don't miss that. But please let me know your thoughts on this situation. What do you make on the new generation? Is it something that you want to buy into, but maybe it's too expensive? Is it something you will be buying, or is it something you think Nvidia has lost you, they've gone too far and you're just not interested? Please let me know down in the comment section below. Absolutely smash the like button if you've enjoyed this video, it really helps out. And if you do want to check out current pricing on anything in this PC or in my entire setup, you can find that link down below with my Amazon affiliate links.
And while you're down there, why not check out Corsair's DDR5? With Vengeance RGB and Dominator kits available, there is truly something available for everyone. Corsair stock both Intel XMP and AMD Expo, so with DDR5 you can get faster speeds, lower latencies and even higher capacities. Get yours today with the link down below.
But thank you so much for watching this video. I'll catch you in the next one.